to be a really good partner in helping the Spurs to continue to reach out to other markets?
They've been an amazing partner. I'll give the NBA a lot of credit because of all the major sports leagues. They were really at the forefront in terms of international expansion. It started obviously with our players and recruiting and retaining top-level talent from around the world, but really sort of the business mindset, starting with Commissioner Stern and now Commissioner Silver, on just having a sort of holistic, broad lens of who our fan base can be. The game is so international and can be accessed by so many. We'd be remiss if we just focused on the domestic or the U.S. demographic. And so we've seen a lot. It starts with our players, but really sort of reaching the fans where they're at. And the NBA fandom is literally worldwide.
Well, when we look at the Spurs into this upcoming season, we'll kind of transition back to on the floor. I'll admit, last year, watching Wemby prior to the draft and seeing his body style and body type, the questions were out there of how many minutes can he handle in year one of the NBA, and boy, the Spurs seem like a great place for him because Popovich has done such a really good job of managing egos, managing people. I think he played more minutes per game last year than I ever thought he could. I don't think it was a surprise to anyone that he was going to be Rookie of the Year, although the guy up in Oklahoma City, Chet and Wemby seem to have a pretty good little back and forth going against each other.
A little burgeoning, right?
Yeah,
game on.
Exactly. But I would assume the organization has to be thrilled with not only Wemby's progression, but the overall team as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But I want to be clear. It's not an accident on Wemby being able to play as many minutes as he did. The guy and the organization takes tremendous care of his body. You think nutrition, you think recovery, you think stretching and mobility, you name it. There's attention being paid to it. And this off season, he was playing, so it wasn't really an off season for him. But he seemed to put on a lot of muscle. But he's been continuing to be super diligent about his entire process and keeping his body durable enough to maintain what is a rigorous NBA schedule. And all of our guys are the same way. We have a really good performance staff, and they pay really close attention to that stuff, from load management to coming back from injury, and they really do pay fine attention to that.
Brandon, I'm curious about the community involvement that you guys do. I mean, everyone knows that the Spurs organization is deeply committed to the San Antonio community. You guys having that office here, you living here, could you tell us a little bit about how you guys actively participate in charitable organizations and how you could have a positive impact on the city? Because I feel like with the changes that Austin has had, with the amount of people that moved here, I moved here 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. A lot of us are from different places, and we pledge allegiance to different teams. Yeah. So I'm just kind of curious that if you could weave that in, how you think you could maybe win those people over too.
So being stewards of the community is part of the Spurs ethos. We wouldn't be the Spurs if we weren't community centric. And one of the big things that we did here, one of the big initiatives that we did pretty early on, is align ourselves with the Parks Foundation. And so we've committed over $500,000 to the Parks Foundation to donate 5 courts in and around Austin over a period of 3 to 4 years. We've done 3, Walnut Creek, Dove Springs, Garrison Park, and then we have another one coming online. And if you are familiar with the Austin area, those are typically in underserved areas. And so our goal is to really sort of bring basketball to people, as we talked about at the start of this call. But community impact is paramount to everything that we do. We want the community to see us, but also feel us in a way that we figure out what the community needs, and then we try to get them those services.
That actually makes me really happy to hear, because I've seen so many like basketball courts being turned into pickleball courts, especially the one over there by Rosewood.
It drives me crazy.
That really makes me happy.
There's more on the way too.
All right, that's
nice. No, I'm not team pickleball. Sorry for the pickleball fans out there.
That means Brandon stands with us, which leads me to the next question. Brandon, you got your JD and MBA from the University of Georgia. Around these parts here, we don't like them Bulldogs too much. So Brandon, who you with?
Well, so I went to the Texas game against Georgia, and normally when I go to Texas games, I wear burnt orange.
Oh my gosh!
You know where this is going.
You did it?
At the UGA game, I had to wear black and red and had to support my alma mater. And it's just, I mean, look, I'm still paying them in tuition fees. They're gonna have my allegiance as long as I'm still cutting a check to pay for that tuition. But no, but University of Texas has been a tremendous partner to us in a lot of things that we do. One of which being a host to our game. So we play at the Moody Center, which is also the home of Texas women's and men's basketball program. And so we couldn't do the things that we want to do, particularly here in Austin, without that partnership with the University of Texas. So they'll always have my support. But going back to your Atlanta talking point, so I grew up a Hawks fan, obviously growing up in Atlanta. And interestingly enough, we are paying very close attention to the Atlanta Hawks these next few seasons, and the reason being is, and I'll just sort of educate you guys. I'll get cap nerd for a second here, but in the next 7 years, we own 12 first-round draft picks, right? We also own 18 second-round draft picks, and so that's probably the best asset class of any organization in the NBA. 3 of those picks belong to the Atlanta Hawks. And so this upcoming draft, we own the Atlanta Hawks draft pick outright. So it's completely unprotected. And so as much as I like to cheer for the Hawks and want them to succeed, every game I watch, I'm hoping the Hawks lose, because the better that draft pick is that we own, the better it's going to be for us. And so although I do have some Atlanta ties, I'm definitely anti-Hawks for the next few years as we own their picks.
I was just talking to Travis off air. Number 1 pick, Rossacker, the other day dropped 33 points.
Yeah, he's a good player.
He dropped 6 threes. And so I was going to ask Travis, and I want to hear from you two, because I think I'm going to lose young boy Jamal over there.
Young boy.
But what's your take on being Wally pipped? Will Danielle Hunter lose his position since he's been hurt all season? And Rossacker, they had to play him, and he just looked great. Yeah. And Hunter is still out. Do you believe? What's your take on being Wally pipped?
Look, I think they are loaded with young talent, and I think they're still figuring it out. And people are figuring out how to play with Trey, who's a unique talent in and of himself. Yeah. And so I think they're just going through the growing pains of how to build a team. Their general manager, Landry Fields, came from us, and so Landry and I were quite close, and now their assistant GM, Ansi, also came from our program. So we have super close ties to the Hawks. We're watching them closely, obviously, but I think they're still trying to figure it out, like a lot of young teams in the NBA, and they got some good young talent, and I hope they don't succeed in the next 3 years.
As a Mavericks fan, of course, Trey and Luka are going to be tied together forever because of the draft day deal. But as a Longhorn fan, I got to see a lot of Trey Young when he was at Oklahoma. But it has been a challenge for Atlanta trying to figure out exactly how to build that franchise around me. Rossacker looks like a really good building piece around him that may finally at least put the keel on more of an even basis for the Hawks franchise moving forward. But because they've cycled a lot of names and bodies through that organization trying to fill that, and it's not easy to do. And the Mavericks didn't find it easy with Luka. The Spurs are still in the early stages with Wemby. Everything looks really good, and obviously, this is not just because you're here. We've said this many times on this show. I don't know many people throughout the NBA who wouldn't call the front office for the Spurs the best front office in the NBA, or at least among the elite front offices. Yeah. And so if anybody is going to have a clear path in their mind, it probably would have been the Spurs even before draft day. And so I don't think that's a surprise, but it's not always easy to build just because you get what you know is going to be a superstar, right? Everyone knew Luka was going to be great, but you still got to build something. Yeah. It's not always that easy.
It's truly not always that easy. There's so many variables, whether it be health, whether it be things going around the players, whether it be coaching situation, whether it just be freak accidents. Like, you never know. It's so hard. I want to underscore that piece. It's so hard. Even drafting a player, like, there's some guys you just know are going to be the guy, but for the most part, you're just guessing. You're literally guessing. And so we try to spend a lot of time with our scouts on figuring out what the intangibles we're looking for are, because playing a guessing game, one thing that you can sort of rest on is, like, is this person going to put in the work? Is this person committed to a team first sort of ethos? Is this person going to take care of his body? Is this person a good human? And so I think you can mitigate some of that risk by really doing your due diligence on who the talent and player is. But to underscore your point, it's very, very hard to build a winning team in the NBA. It's so competitive.
Yeah.
Hey, do you think coaches need to change, gentlemen? So we're talking about Zachary Riesacker, #1 pick in the NBA draft. He was born in Spain. Mm-hmm. Our coaching, if we're using American males for coaching predominantly,
sure,
maybe not of the most diverse backgrounds. Maybe they don't have international ties. Maybe they can't speak a bunch of languages. Mm-hmm. Do we have to start training our coaches to be able to handle these #1 picks that come from different backgrounds? Is that even something that you guys thought about as an organization to make Wemby feel better?
No, it's something we think about. The example is our performance group, and so how we treat that. Like, one of the differences between sort of American wellness and international wellness is here in America we treat injuries, and the international model is they try to prevent injuries.
Okay.
And so one of the things that we've tried to do was adopt some of that international approach on injury prevention, doing a lot of pre-work, doing a lot of recovery work, and that model is now sort of commonplace in the NBA, but it hasn't always been. And so to your point on, we're always looking at what's going on, not only domestically, but across the world. And I think not only performance staff, but coaches, analytics, everyone is looking at what everyone's doing, because information now is so democratized. And so if you're not looking at best practices across the world, you're probably playing catch up to what other people are doing.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask if I could. Was that in my industry that I work in, ran into Drew Hayes.
Okay.
I wanted to ask a little bit about your involvement with the board of directors of the Austin Sports Commission.
Yeah, no, we know Drew well. So Drew is the head of. So as a part of Visit Austin, they have what's called the Sports Commission, and the Sports Commission's role is to figure out what sporting events should and could come to Austin. So think of F1s, think of Final Fours, think of CrossFit championships, think of volleyball tournaments. And so our goal is really to make Austin a high priority for these tournaments, these organizations, when they're looking to spread their brand or play their tournament somewhere. We want Austin to be high on those lists. And so Drew's put together a really talented group of people. A lot of good friends are on that committee with me, on that board with me. And our goal is just to provide Austin, a lot of things, right? Provide Austin the access to this elite level sort of sporting environment, but also make sure that Austin continues to be a place that is a city that's on the climb, and we want to be mentioned in the likes of the New Yorks, the LAs, and not the sort of superficial way, but as a place, a destination place that people want to come and that people will like living. And sports is a big part of that.
Yeah, for sure.
We had a significant amount of turnover, I'd say, when you have players that come up and come down, G League up and down.
Yeah.
The Lakers look like they're going to send Bronny down.
Yeah.
I'm against that, Brandon. I believe he should stay up. He's the 12th man. Didn't nobody care about the 55th pick last year, who I think was with the Celtics, and his amount of time. And that person can die at the end of the bench and no one would know. What's your take on sending people down to the G League or occupying that 12th man position? We
are big proponents of the G League here in Spurs land. We've had a lot of our our elite level talent come through and play at the G League. Think Corey Joseph, think DeJounte Murray, think Derek White. All those guys spent significant time in the G League, and it's been a big catalyst and reason that our players have been able to develop the way they have. The Lakers are looking to compete for a championship, and so they're going to put the best talent on the floor. And if Bronny's not going to see the floor, I think the Lakers have lost 3 of their last 4.
Yes.
If Bronny's not going to see the floor in those games, it doesn't make sense for him to just be out there and doing warm-ups before the game and doing warm-ups at halftime. He needs to get reps. He needs to get reps against professional players. He needs to be getting a rhythm and figuring out what professional basketball is. I mean, the guy's just coming out of high school. I know he spent a year at USC, but like he's got a lot to learn about professional basketball, and it's going to be really hard to do that, as you mentioned, as a 12th guy on the bench. And so the more reps he can get, the more time he can get on the floor against professional athletes, I think it's going to be better for Bronny and better for the organization. And that's not me telling them how to run their organization, but that's just my opinion.
I was actually talking to a buddy of mine about the Mavericks the other day. Omax Prosper is just not getting any playing time, and I would expect my anticipation this year is that if you really think Omax can be a part of your organization in the future, you've got to get him reps.
Yeah.
And so he needs to go over to the G League franchise.
Douglas just wants him to waste away on the end of the bench, an extra water guy or something. Who knows?
That's right.
You're halfway right. The only other, and I'll be quick on this. I don't want to make you mad, Jamal. The only other thing, Brandon, you have a peer over in that Spurs organization who is the money guy or the marketing guy or gal, and I guarantee you they're saying, "Yo, Brandon, we're selling a lot of jerseys. There's a lot of requests. There's a lot of clicks on Bronny everything."
Yeah.
Do you think that person in other organizations or even yours, do they get heard out? Do people hear them out sometimes?
Yeah, no, I mean, you bring up a fair point, the commercial aspect of all of this. And so I think organizations look at it differently. Philosophically, we're looking to build championship teams for the long run. And if you can have a player develop, that's only going to make you a better team in the long run. And so we don't take that sort of quick approach. Could we get more clicks if we had a guy on our bench versus sending him to the G League? Maybe, but in the long run, we want to build a championship team, not only for 1 year, but for future years too.
Okay.
All right, this has been Brandon James. He is the Senior Vice President of Strategic Growth and Deputy General Counsel for the San Antonio Spurs. Brandon, thank you so much
No, thank
for
you
coming
guys.
in with us.
Always
again.
deliver, Brandon.
Always a treat.
All right, we need to get